Oh, it's been said a bard's life can often be a hard life, or hill and dale to rove and always move from town to town. And some folk have inquired if ever we grow tired of ranging all around the world and never settling down.
But one should be a little wary of remaining stationary, 'cause comfortable is lovely, but it's not the way we grow. When life starts to unravel, pick up your pack and travel. You'll find a strange serenity in places you don't know. Wriggle-dee-dum-dee-doo-rat-terry-o-dee. There's so much to see beyond the open door. It's outward bound we go. Who knows what we'll find that we've never found before. Adventures waiting further down the road. It's waiting for you further down the road. You've got no map for showing which direction you are going.
But why start on a journey if you know where it will end?
And once you recognize,
to anticipate surprise, you'll relish every twist and turn that lies around the bend. Wriggle-dee-dum-dee-doo-rat-terry-o-dee-da-dee-da-dee. There's so much to see beyond the open door. It's outward bound we go. Who knows what we'll find that we've never found before. Adventures waiting further down the road. It's waiting for you further down the road. Lie-da-lie-da-lie-da-lie-da-lie. Lie-da-lie-da-lie-da-lie. Lie-da-da-lie-da-lie-da-lie-da-lie. La-da-da-lie-da-lie-da-lie. La-da-da-lie-da-lie-da-lie. The world has got its demons. There are many reasons why you'd find it harder to be brave than be afraid. But every life could use some danger. Every friend was once a stranger. Ships are safe in harbor, but that's not why ships are made.
Wriggle-dee-dum-dee-doo-rat-terry-o-dee-da-dee. A fwit-da-dee-da-dee. There's so much to see beyond the open door. It's outward bound we go. Who knows what we'll find that we've never found before. Adventures waiting further down the road. It's waiting for you further down the road. Lie-da-lie-da-lie-da-lie-da-lie. Lie-da-lie-da-lie-da-lie. Lie-da-lie-da-lie-da-lie-da-lie. Ya-da-da-da-da-lie-da-lie-da-lie. Adventures waiting further down the road. Let's go! Lie-da-lie-da-lie-da-lie-da-lie. Lie-da-lie-da-lie-da-lie. Lie-da-lie-da-lie-da-lie-da-lie. Ya-da-da-da-da-lie-da-lie. La-da-da-da-da-lie-da-lie.
Greetings, friends, and welcome back to another episode of Gothic Horror Gaming here on Nat 21 Adventures. I am your host, the Gloom Master, and tonight we'll be doing a little something different. We did this once before, almost a year ago now, where I'm going to get you all to help me create our next adventure. But before we get into the nitty-gritty of all of that, I do want to take a few moments, first of all, to welcome you all for coming back. Thank you so much. Good to see you all here. Sir David Percival, Salier, Victorian London Fog, I see have already commented. Thank you so much for being here. But I also need to thank our sponsors, because that is a thing. So let us start off by thanking our good friends, Amy and Jesse over at 3dtu.org. They're making all sorts of gaming stuff, dice towers, dice boxes, journals, that sort of thing, 3D wood burning, as well as 3D printing, all that sort of thing. So please check them out over there at 3dtu.org. Also, our perennial sponsors, which is Ren Adventures, and they've specialized now into Destination D&D at renadventures.com. We got a New Orleans trip coming up in November, so that you can come down to New Orleans. You'll spend some time there, get to see the sights, get to go on some tours, sample the local cuisine and beverages, and then also game. And then it culminates in a trip to the Louisiana Renaissance Fair, where many of us who you see here on this channel are performing at the Louisiana Renaissance Fair. So please do check that out. And in general, Destination D&D, all sorts of stuff going on. We've got a separate website for it now. We were in England this past year, in the Lakes region, at the Muncaster Castle, and we're hoping to be back there again next year. So keep in mind that, and keep checking out DestinationDND.com. And of course, Handler Z, my wife, who is on this channel very often, has a book by Melissa Lee. That is her name. Dare is her current one. It is a collection of short fiction and poetry, primarily dark, available in paperback or on Kindle, and available on Audible, where I do the narration. So please do check us out over there. So many friends chiming in. Kara Chappell, thank you for coming on in and everything, joining us here. Yes, Victorian London Fog, we're hoping that the New Orleans thing keeps going. It's gone well so far, so I don't see why we would stop it. And again, many of us are there in Louisiana performing at that time of year, so it makes it very convenient that many of the game masters are all right there. So we're hoping to keep that going and keep on keeping on. Oh yes, Paulo is there all the time. He's actually missing the last weekend of the Louisiana Renaissance Fair. That will not affect the Destination D&D. Pardon me for just a moment. However, he has landed a wonderful time being a Krampus out on the West Coast. So he's actually going to miss the last little bit of the Louisiana Fair, but he will still be there for the Destination D&D. So we'll be able to see him then. And let us see. Some vague disclaimers. Almost all of you are regulars here, but just in case somebody new joins us, I do want to say that we deal with themes of horror, and that is not necessarily for everyone. Violence, gore, that sort of thing. Adult themes sometimes. So if that's not your cup of tea, that's all right. We're actually not playing tonight. We are creating a new adventure. I'm going to be doing that with help from all of you. Let me give you a basic rundown of the world in which I set my horror games. Excuse me. It is based tacos. They're really good. Homemade. The universe is set in the Chill universe. Chill is a game that was, I actually pulled it up because I kept vaguely giving the publishing date. It was originally published by Pacesetter Games in 1984. And then Mayfair Games bought them in 1990. Then Growling Door Games bought them in 2015. And I think they currently still have the rights to it. But the Chill universe, it's our world, but the supernatural is real and is sort of in the background behind everything. not necessarily controlling everything, but it's there. The general public is not aware of it. And those who have been exposed to it have taken to calling it the unknown. The unknown is generally very powerful and generally very evil. Not always, but probably a good 90% of the time, the unknown is evil. There is a group that has banded together to combat this. Basically, a bunch of well-to-do gentlemen started it back in the 1800s when they noticed the unknown. You think of Victorian gentlemen with leisure time and extra wealth. When they were going out exploring, they discovered these horrible things out there while they were exploring and went, "Ooh, that's bad. We should probably do something about that." So they assembled they sort of banded together and created the Society of the Eternal Silver Way, which the acronym of the Latin translation of that becomes SAVE. So they are now called SAVE. It's not a government organization. It is a privately funded one that is out there running. And sometimes, not all the time, sometimes the players' characters are members of this SAVE organization. They've been inducted into SAVE. Oh, thank you, Sir David Percival. There is the... oops, wrong button. I wanted to show you, here it is, the Latin, which I'm not very good at. Societas Argente Viae Eternitata, I guess. It's been a very long time since I took Latin. I took Latin my freshman and sophomore year of high school was the last time I took Latin, and that was still in the 80s. So I don't really remember much of the Latin, especially the pronunciation. But there we go. Took a stab at it. Sir David, we might want to do some polls tonight, depending on how things go. Yes, so that's the universe. That's the rules. But your player characters are just regular people. They are regular human beings thrust into these incredibly powerful supernatural entities that they have to deal with, which is part of where the horror is going to be coming from. Now, the rule system we use is incredibly, incredibly simple. It's from a game called Over the Edge, which I also brought up here because, again, I was saying vague things about it, and I wanted to give you the factual information. It was originally, it was published by Atlas Games, started in 1992. There was a second edition in 97, and then there was a third edition in 2019. So that sort of gives you an idea of when this game was created, around the same time as Vampire the Masquerade. And there were some of the same people working on them, for those of you who are familiar with Vampire the Masquerade. There's a thought. Maybe we have to do a Vampire the Masquerade game at some point on here. That might be fun. All right, so saving that for future notice. But the rules for Over the Edge are very simple. This game, your characters have traits, 3 of them. They have a primary and 2 side traits. Anything they try to do, you roll depending on if it matches up with their traits. And traits can be anything. Primary trait might be policeman. And if something matches your primary trait, you roll 4d6, trying to hit a target number to succeed. So our police officer is trying to fire a gun. He would roll 4d6 because that's what he's trained to do. Maybe one of his side traits is competitive swimmer. So now he's trying to make his way across a raging river in a thunderstorm. But that's his side trait. So instead of rolling 4d6, he would roll 3d6. And if it doesn't correspond to any trait, it's 2d6. There are ways that we do on Twitch where you can spend your Twitch points to buy helps for the players or for me to give them bonus dice that will act like advantage or disadvantage in Dungeons & Dragons 5e in that they will get to roll an extra die, but still only take the highest of whatever they would normally be allowed. So if the officer swimming across the river normally would roll 3d6, he uses a help. He now rolls 4d6, but he only picks the highest 3. That's basically the rules. The creators of Over the Edge specifically stated that they wanted the rules to be there, so it was still a game, but they wanted much more storytelling and improvisation in their game system. So that's why the rules are so light, which works out great for us, because very often I have players who either have never played with me before or are very busy in their lives. Most of our players, in fact, are performers of one kind or another and are often very busy and traveling around the country. So I found that this incredibly light rules system makes it very easy for them just to jump in and play the game without too much fiddling around with creating a character and learning a rule system and all of that. It helps also that most of these performers also have improv and interaction experience at Renaissance fairs primarily, but other venues as well. So as a result, we can improvise the story as we go along quite well, with minimal background time, like us all hanging out together a lot. Although many of us have hung out together for years and years and years. So that also makes the game flow a lot smoother. But I'm reading the comments here. So David Percival, you did the beta of the Vampire the Masquerade Victorian London Fog. You weren't. You like the idea of Vampire the Masquerade. I did one of the earliest non-Dungeons and Dragons games that I ever played. I started at Dungeons and Dragons, of course, as many of us did. But in the 90s, I helped run some Vampire the Masquerade LARPs in and around the Philadelphia, Baltimore area, like in that general vicinity, out to Lancaster, Pennsylvania, all that sort of thing. Some of you already knew that. So I actually know a couple of the co-authors of some of the books. I don't know them well. They're not like personal friends of mine, but I've met them. I've hung out with them a little bit. So it's a small world that you played the beta of that, Sir David Percival. Awesome. So for tonight, I want to create a new game, a new adventure, if you will, in the chill universe with the Over the Edge rules. And yes, thank you, Kara Chappell, for that. It's very simple universe, everything, the Over the Edge, very simple rules. So that being said, we can set this in whatever time period we want. And we can make the things work and match into this. But I very often start with the time period. So let's start with something different. I had some ideas for adventures I want to run, and I sort of put them on the side because I have ideas of when and who I want to do them. So I want to make sure that those players are available. I'm not sure what players I'm going to have available next week to run this just yet. I've got several people who are interested, but no one has given me a definite yet. So to that end, we can set this whenever we want, but let's start with a theme. Very often, themes are, you'll see them in horror movies and in novels and all that sort of thing. Very often, if you remember from English class, there was the basic breakdown of the basic types of stories: person versus person, person versus themselves, person versus nature, that sort of thing as a story structure. Isolation from community. That's an interesting one. Traveling carnival. I could see that, Kara. All right, interesting. I ran a Pathfinder campaign where they were all traveling performers for a long time, and they got they. It was a fantasy D&D Pathfinder game, but that was their hook. Is their traveling caravan would go from town to town, and then they would, as a side gig, go off and do these adventures. Basically go to the village notice board and try to earn some extra money by solving the town's problems by being hired adventurers, like a Witcher kind of thing. But they were carnival performers. And then eventually a main plot sort of crept in and guided their actions. Thinking about the lack of third spaces in modern America. Victorian London thought. Victorian, what do you mean by the lack of third spaces? What do you think of? What are you thinking about that? Repossession of ancient books. Trying to find old cursed books and relics. Interesting. Oh, third space is the one you go to socialize in, not to work, not your home, but the social space. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, well, a lot of third spaces in modern day America, now that I know what the definition of a third space is, seem to involve isolating activities anyway. Like you're going to a movie theater, and you're sitting in there quietly by yourself in a movie theater. By the way, I just watched Deadpool and Wolverine today. So much fun. But you're not really talking to anybody while you're watching that. You'll talk about it afterwards, but it's not really a social space. Or a concert. You're not going to hear anything over the music. Yes, it's a social experience that you're gathered together, but you're not really getting to talk to each other. And then, like, your other option is what? A bar? Bar or club, where usually people have a pretty set agenda on that when they're going to those things. So maybe not. Interesting that a lack of that kind of thing. I'm reading back through your comments. Sorry. Yeah, possession of ancient books, Vikings. Oh, that's an interesting idea. I mean, not even Vikings transported to the future. Flat out Vikings. Flat out Norsemen. It's a thought. Again, we're not constrained by time period. We could, we've done 1700s. We've done plenty in the 1800s, in the 1900s. We've done some modern. My wife has done some future ones in the past. So that's a thought too. But yeah, finding isolation. Isolation is an interesting one. French Revolution, 1700s, but in Europe, 1700s. Because we did one in England. Oh, we did an Elizabethan England one once as well. So there's Elizabethan England. We did colonial United States before, but French Revolution, interesting. I kind of like it. French Revolution, indeed. Oh, you have both piqued my curiosity with that one. Now my brain is starting to go down that one. So what if we did somehow French Revolution with maybe the first French Revolution with the feeling of isolation. What if we've run in out into the French countryside to avoid the horrors of the committee and everything in Paris, only to discover something worse out there. That's a thought. Or what if we could put our own spin on history, and what if what is driving the bloodiness of the French Revolution, because it didn't start out it was not non-violent, but it got worse as time went on as far as bloodshed and retribution and everything. So what if there's some supernatural agency that's fueling that behind everything? And maybe that's the horror, is that the revolution started with humankind rebelling against the autocratic rulership of the French monarchy and aristocracy. But then what if that spawned some kind of hate supernatural entity that then feeds more into it and gets more bloodshed, more horribleness going? So that's reign of literal terror. Yeah, I like that. French Revolution with Vikings. This time with Vikings. The violence of the Bastille Day. It woke something up. Maybe that's it. I mean, Google, if you are ever making games for yourself and you're setting them in the real world, Google and Wikipedia are your absolute friends, because you don't need a huge, deep knowledge. We're using this as a setting. So if you can get just the basic knowledge of things, I Google and Wikipedia things all the time when I'm creating games. The Vikings did invade Paris. You are right. There was a huge deal with the Burgundians buying off the Vikings at one point, and then a couple years later, the Vikings came back and said, "You know what? That wasn't enough money," and they trashed the place. See, 1789 was the storming of the Bastille, July 14th. After 4 hours of fighting and 94 deaths, the insurgents were able to enter the Bastille. The governor of it, and members of the garrison were killed after they surrendered. Oh my. The prison only contained, this is fun, I want to read this to you all. The prison contained only 7 inmates at the time of its storming and was already scheduled for demolition. But it was seen as a symbol of the monarchy's abuse of power. So even though, practically there wasn't a whole lot going on in the Bastille at the time, it was more of a tear down the symbol sort of thing. Let's see. One spirit from Japan. Oh, I know which ones you mean. Spirits in Japan that devoured the dead, and then it rises up once things are starting to happen. So that's an interesting thought. I like that idea. Yeah, I think whatever it is, it's something that they woke up. Sir David Percival, if you could create a poll for us, I think we're pretty much kind of focusing in on the French Revolution as our time frame and our setting. But if you would create a poll, and for our setting, let's do throw on Viking, throw on French Revolution, and we have Easter Island in there as well. Cara Chapel recommended that. And let's also do modern day for those those four things. So French Revolution, Viking, modern day, and Easter Island. And then all of you guys can vote once we get a poll up and see if that's if the majority of us are going for the Bastille, and the French Revolution, because that's kind of where I'm leaning. But I want to hear your opinions, all of you. Okay, the poll is live for 2 minutes. And they can find that on Twitch itself. I'm currently not logged into Twitch. I'm concerned about bandwidth and everything running the stream as well as Twitch, so I tend not to log into Twitch itself while I'm running one. But yeah, think that around, or if anything else kicks into your brain. Speaking of decadence and the French Revolution, I am currently having a lovely gin martini this evening. It's a New Amsterdam gin, which is my house gin, a standard stock. Pretty good, but not too expensive, with a little bit of vermouth, because if it doesn't have vermouth in it, it's not a martini. It's just chilled gin. I stirred it, did not shake it. If you shake it, you might bruise the gin and it becomes cloudy. 3 olives. 1 olive is cheap. 2 olives is unlucky. 3 olives is just right. That's what I learned when I was a bartender. And I have, I don't know if you can see this, my cocktail skewers. I got myself an antique set at a bazaar shop at the PA Ren Fair. Oh my goddess, at the PA Ren Fair had this at the Celtic Fling. They are brass swords. There are 12 of them that are actually cocktail skewers. So yes, skewers shaped like swords, but not the plastic kind. These are brass. It's a set that I saw it in their shop, and I said, "Oh no, that has to come home with me." Oh, only gin you like is Bombay Sapphire. All right, that's fair. That's one of the neat things about gin, is that they are all different and unique, because they all use different blends of botanicals on the base of it. They all have pretty much juniper in them, but then everything else can be different. Currant, Hendrix likes to use a lot of cucumber, so you can really taste the cucumber in that. So every gin tastes slightly different, which is great. Oh, the French Revolution won. All right, very good. We can work on the catacombs of Paris. How about this? Let's put some of these things together and create a thing. What if our adventure starts, they're in Paris and they're trying to escape the horrors of it, and they go down into the catacombs, where they are trying to escape, or hide, or just get out of town. And then when they get down there, that's when they discover the entity that is feeding off of the violence and hate is living down there. Oh yeah, and then there's plenty of undead for them that could be called up by this creature for them to fight. One of the things I like to do in my adventures, and many of you might have noticed this already in the adventures that I tend to run, I like to have some combats sprinkled in. One, because combats tend to be fun to play. Very often the monsters in the Chill universe are so powerful that you don't really have a hope of defeating them directly unless you have special things ready to go, or overwhelming firepower, or something ridiculous. That's not usually how they can be defeated. In the last game I just ran, they were fighting a forest spirit. Many of you were there for that. And that thing would just regenerate forever. And the only way to stop it was to seal off where the cave painting was, because that's what summoned it in the game. In my mind, an ancient shaman had created that cave painting, and that is what summoned that thing. And the cave got sealed, and it was sealed in it, and it was that archaeologist fellow opening it up and exposing it to the light of day that enabled the forest entity to come back out and start wreaking havoc. I was going to allow them several different ways to stop it. Sealing the cave back up, somehow scouring the paint off the wall was going to be another option. But leading up to that fight, I gave them several things to fight, like they fought the wild pigs at one point, the feral hogs, just to give minions, essentially, for them to dispatch until they got to the big bad at the end. You want to build up to that. So the undead in the catacombs would be a great idea. It would be a great idea to do that, to sort of bring that in. Victorian London Fog, a wannabe necromancer into it. I've used that a couple times already. People dabbling in the occult and it getting away from them. So I don't know that I want to do the necromancer. I love the idea of it. This is a creature that is spawned from humanity's own ugliness and hate, and that our hate has repercussions beyond our own lives, and it kind of spreads out. Now I'm coming up with a theme, and it has effects down the line, and this hate entity is a manifestation of that, perhaps. So maybe that's where we're going with it. Could there be a human agent, though? Victorian London Fog? Could it be maybe not a necromancer? Maybe could it be something else that is creating this, or somehow tied in? Maybe it's creating itself, but somebody is Robespierre. Maybe. Let me kick that around in my brain for a few minutes. Let me see what comes up from that. Yes, Kara, I had determined that the creature from the last adventure would not have been permanently injured by fire. It would have been messed up by fire, but I think it would have come back. Forest fires happen all the time and throughout all of history, and the forest comes back. So maybe it might have delayed it. Maybe it might have knocked it out, at least for the length of the adventure. But in my mind, it would have come back several years down the road once it regenerated enough. Yeah. Morcall, are you saying that the Robespierre is a great catalyst for the creature, maybe? I do like the sound of that. I mean, I am sadly not as up on my French history as I would like. But that is what the internet is for. Let's see. Let's find out a little bit about Maximilien Robespierre. Okay. Campaign for voting rights for all men, not just the aristocracy. Right to petition, right to bear arms, self-defense. He wanted the abolition of the Atlantic slave trade. Interesting. He faced criticism for purportedly trying to establish either a triumvirate or dictatorship. He wanted to mobilize an army to enforce revolutionary laws and eliminate any counter-revolutionary elements. Appointed Committee of Public Safety. What? Oh, he was executed without trial, marking the onset of the Thermidorian reaction. All right. Oh, okay. I think I got an idea. Lestat was Parisian. Yeah. Okay. Yep. True. Well, he ended up there anyway. I'm reading your things. So David Percival, I'm thinking something along those lines. What if we set our game right after Robespierre's execution, and it's his vengeful spirit that is coalescing the hatred? Does that sound interesting? That it's and that way we're kind of taking some of what Victorian London Fog was recommending as well, like a necromancer. But what if they're already dead? What if it's Robespierre, so full of vitriol and hate at his unjust death and his fear that the revolution is going to collapse, that he comes back from beyond the veil, feeds off the hate in order to purge all those who don't believe, and that's why the terror is going on so horribly. Yeah, a lot of hate, nowhere for it to go. Sounds good. Yeah, and they did turn on him really fast. So yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe that's what we do. Maybe it's Robespierre. All right, so I'm gonna make some notes here. I tend to write everything down on just a yellow legal pad. My notes are never very long, terribly detailed. I like to have a sheet or two of paper that I can just reference. That way, I'm not spending the game looking at detailed backstory notes that I have that I'm never going to remember in the heat of the moment. I like to hit salient points. As a good example, I happen to have sitting up here. I'll show you guys. For the last adventure, the last game, it was this piece of paper, this piece of paper, and this piece of paper. That was it for my game that I ran in the woods. The Virginia set in the 90s that we just did. These were all of my notes for it, all of it, for the whole game. And a good half of that are keeping track of how many hit points the boars had and that sort of thing. But I tend to make up names a lot of the time as I go. I use random name generators off to the side that I just have up, that I will pull up, and then I'll just make a list of, like, if I'm doing set in a historical area, like for this one, I'll come up with like a list of 10 French men's first names, 10 French women names, and then like 20 surnames, and I'll just jot them all down. And then as I need to create characters, I'll just pick from those, just combine two, and poof, that's that person's name now. So, I didn't expect them to go and buy candles. So the candle maker's name is Jacques Leclerc. Okay, great. Jacques Leclerc. Boom. And then I'll write that down as we play so that I can get back there again. So yeah, that's yeah. Victorian London Fog. I'm my background is in improv theater. It's what I do for most of my professional career during a year. Improv, stage combat, and interactive theater. So I do have an unfair advantage in that I'm pretty good at coming up with things on the fly as we go. I have no notes for tonight, by the way, for what I was going to do tonight. I'm just talking to you now. We're just figuring it out as we go. I had a bit vague idea of what I wanted to do and ask you guys questions. I had a couple questions in mind to get us going, but not everyone's going to be able to go on just 2 pages of notes. That's just how I roll. Take as many pages of notes as you need. Every game master is different. Everyone's style is different. Just because I do it a certain way doesn't mean that's the way to do it. It's just, I found that's what works for me. So for tonight, what I'm going to do is write down, let's see, Robespierre. For those of you just joining us, we are creating our next adventure we are going to do here, starting next Wednesday. It's a horror game, and we're setting it in. Let's see, he was executed 1794. So he's executed in July, end of July, 1794. How appropriate. So we're going to set it in August. August, let's say 7th. 1794 is where we're going to start off. Our players are fleeing. Oh, I'm sorry, Thermidor. Yes, you're right. They had the different names. The Revolutionary Committee had a whole bunch of ideas, didn't they? Players are fleeing the terror. They will end up in the catacombs / sewers. Spirit of Robespierre fueling hate. Okay. Oh, she's not talking lobster thermidor. It was the French Republican calendar, the revolutionary calendar. They had their own. They decided that they would create their own everything to replace the Gregorian calendar because they're like, we don't want any. We want to completely eliminate our ties to the past and the monarchy and everything like that. So they created a whole bunch of their own months and everything. It was every month had 30 days, 3 10-day cycles, not even like weeks, but so it was 30 days, but it was 10 days. And then they had a couple of extra days at the end to make it up to balance it out. Yeah, and it lasted for how long did it last for? From 1793 to 1805, and they used it for 18 whole days in 1871. During that revolution too. All right, so yeah, and I'm not going to force I'm not going to force our players to be a certain type of character, but it would be interesting if they pick people on different sides of the revolution and they're all trying to flee together. That would be interesting indeed. All right, so what are we trying to, what are our players trying to accomplish? What we need to give them a goal, and we can give them a goal and then have a bait and switch in it where the goal changes. So is the goal initially just to flee Paris? Like, is their goal to escape Paris? And then they encounter Robespierre, entity spirit, who doesn't want them to go. So now they have to dispatch the spirit somehow. Is that the arc we want to have? I'm not saying that that's 100% the right way to go. And there's no right or wrong way, actually. But I'm not saying that that's necessarily the route we're going here, but that's a thought. Like, is it they're trying to escape? The Robespierre entity senses them trying to escape and is like, no, none will escape my wrath, kind of thing. So now rather than escape, they have to figure out how to get rid of them so they can escape. I mean, why would the spirit want to stop them specifically? Trying to possess one of them, give himself a body. That's a possibility. I don't know that I need to come up with the reason right now as to why Robespierre's spirit focuses on the party. It might be revealed in their character creations. If one of them decides that they are a scientist, or one of them decides that they are a member of nobility, or if one of them decides maybe that they were a particular foe of Robespierre or part of a group that was, that could be something that we discover once our players make their characters. That might give us why. We can create something as to why if we need to, but I'd rather see if something is discovered when the players make their characters. Something might lend itself. Yeah. One is a long relationship to one of the executioners, something like that. Yeah, it could be anything. Yeah, and there was a mass exodus. There was a bunch of people fled to England, a bunch of the aristocracy. For those of you familiar with the Scarlet Pimpernel, that's set in that time and in that exact circumstance. So yeah. Maybe one of them has the one thing that can stop it and doesn't know that. That might be too. So what does the spirit, how do we banish the spirit of Robespierre? How do we get rid of him? What is the way to dispatch him? I usually like to have a couple of ways, because the players are never going to, I don't want to railroad them into a course of action. Like, oh, no, because, for example, with the forest entities game that we just ran before this, in my mind initially, it was, we've got to scour the wall of it. We got to deface the wall in order to get rid of the cave painting that summoned this creature. But when the players, particularly Alex Stampoli's character was like, oh, I'm going to go and see if there's a way to cause a landslide and seal the cave, I was like, sure, that can work too. Why not? Because I want them to come up with their own thing. Yeah, the guillotine is a great it's a great symbol. Grimoire. He may get his body, do something with a hateful spirit. Hey, so when he was killed, let me look up real quick. What was done with his body? Because that might give us a clue. So let me go back to old Wikipedia over here. Man, he was busy. Let's see. How did execution of Louis? No, we're past that. Reign of Terror. Here we go. Sorry, I'm just scanning through really quickly to try to catch up to like I'm assuming he was a victim of the guillotine. February, March, April. I'm going like a month by month through his life. Doubling of death sentences. Downfall. All right, July. Here's the 9 Thermidor. Yeah, exactly. That's what I want to see. If he was guillotined, maybe they have to restore his head to his body. Maybe that's what it is. Let me see. Arrest, execution. Oh, he Robespierre first tried to commit suicide. How interesting, when he knew he was arrested and everything. He shot himself in the mouth. According to some witnesses, he wounded himself when he tried to commit suicide by pointing the pistol at his mouth, but the gendarme prevented him from killing himself successfully as they were trying to escape. He was injured and bloodied, but he was still brought before the tribunal the very next day, sentenced to death. He was the 10th to ascend the platform at 6 p.m. of that very next day. He dislodged the bandage securing the executioner, dislodged the bandage securing his shattered jaw, eliciting an anguished scream until his demise. Following his beheading, the crowd erupted in applause and jubilant cries, which reportedly endured for 15 minutes. They were interred in a mass grave in the newly established Aransas Cemetery. They were transferred to the catacombs, but not until 1840s, 1850s. But he was guillotined, thrown in a mass grave. All right. So he's in a mass grave. So maybe they have to sneak up there and find his body and his head, reunite them. Yeah, Victorian London fog. That's exactly what I'm thinking they have to do. That would be truly horrible. This is a horror game. What if they have to search through a mass grave of the recently beheaded to find his body and his head and put them back together? Okay. What if they just have to find his head? If they can find his head and give it a proper burial, does that do it? Maybe? Yeah, what if they find his head and give it a proper burial somewhere? Yeah. Bury it in holy ground or whatever. In France. Yeah, it has to be in France. They can't take it out of France. And to be honest, I think the spirit of Robespierre does not know that will set him free, and so therefore he's going to be trying to stop it. And I love the idea of all the headless bodies in the mass grave starting to writhe as they get the right head, and then the other heads are starting to bite at them and stuff. The severed heads are trying to attack them. Yeah, that's really horrible, and I love it. They had to bury it in a churchyard. Or the we'll let them, how about I'll let them decide where a proper place to bury it is, and as long as it seems reasonable, I will allow it. How's that? So if they decide to put it in the catacombs, that's okay. Or if they decide to go to a churchyard, that's okay. Or if they decide to chuck it in the Seine, that's okay too. I'm going to go with all those things are okay, and just let them pick which one it is. Now the question is, how do they know it's the spirit of Robespierre that's causing this? So the end game is they have to find and dispose of head of Robespierre. Okay. So how do they know? So David, first of all, I like the way you think. Yeah, chucking the Seine would only cause issues with the spirit of the Seine, creating another host of problems and a whole nother gaming session. And we'll see what they choose as a solution. As long as it's reasonable, I'll allow it. The default will be burying it in hallowed ground. And as long as they come up with something that seems like a reasonable variant thereof, then we'll go with it. Even if it's incinerating it, maybe they burn it. If they choose to burn his head, I think we let that go. I think we let them do it, and then that solves it. Boo, in Seine. Oh, Victorian London fog. Boo. It's a pun, and I'm a dad now, so I approve. Perhaps the supernatural could resemble guillotines in some way. Sure. But how do we know it's Robespierre? Do we have... We want to make it clear that the spirit doing this is him. Family crest. Family crest. I don't know that he did he have one? Was he? I don't think he was ennobled. I don't think he would have survived as long as he did if he had been ennobled. Although he's a de Robespierre, which he's a French lawyer. Let me check out his early life. His father was a lawyer. His mother was the daughter of a brewer, eldest of four. Abandoned by his father after his mother died, raised by his aunts. So he's not ennobled, so he wouldn't have a family crest per se. What if the spirit has a shattered lower jaw? Yeah, there you go. Kara, I just saw your comment. Yes, that is exactly where that's the same thing that I just reached to. Yeah, badge of safety, because did they have badges? The safety committee? He goes around moaning his name. If the players don't catch on, I can have him do that eventually as the end all be all, to be like, okay, here, in case you weren't sure, here it is. Many of my players are quite educated very often. So did they have a badge? There's a symbol that they have. Did they wear a particular badge? Well, let's look up. French. Because I like the idea of a badge now. Images. There are some people have created modern day ones. There's the original. Yeah, there was an emblem. Where was it used? All right, we can have the emblem. Okay. Yeah, some of the party might have seen a Kara. We'll see what characters they choose to see whether some of them might recall that his mouth was bandaged up. So they see this ghostly spirit with shattered jaw and Committee of Public Safety badge. Awesome. Very good. Okay. So I think I just need to come up with where they start now. Where do they begin? Are you thinking about getting the badge back to his house? I think we make him go for the skull. I just think that would be such a wonderfully gory and horrible scene to dig into a mass grave and be sifting through severed heads looking for the one looking for that jaw would be great. So I kind of want to keep it that they have to find the skull. If they come up with something even better, We'll roll with it and we'll go with it. But I think I want to stick with that for that image because it would look really good. But maybe what the badge is, maybe the badge is on the spirit that they see, which will clue them in that, oh, this was a member of the committee. The spirit is a member of the committee. Who was on the committee? Hey, it had a shattered jaw. Who had its shattered jaw? And even if the players don't know from history, they can be asking around and find somebody who knows that, who will tell them. I think that's an easy do. That's easy to get to. That even if they, as the players, don't know, if they ask around, they can find some eyewitnesses if they themselves were not eyewitnesses to what happened. So now, how do our players get thrown together that they're trying to escape Paris in the first place? Obviously, they're trying to escape the terrors. Their names are on lists somewhere, so they're trying to escape from that. So how do we start? Where do we begin with all of them? Are they all being held somewhere? I'm thinking a big fire. Yeah, I was thinking like, what if they are all being held in a building, in a preliminary building, and it crashes a la Skyrim, where Deus Ex Machina causes the prison to be broken open and they escape. Victorian London fog. I like that. Yes, yesterday of Percival, they're slated to be prisoners by the committee. Yes. Or they fear that they will be. So they're trying to escape. They all just missed a big way out of Paris. Was there what was the were there what were the boats like on the Seine? Okay, I'm putting all of your ideas together and like making a conglomerate of them. Missing the last transport, fire at the docks. Committee put people on the docks and block them in to sort of temporarily hold them. Committee big on port security. Okay, what if they've all gone down to one of the docks on the Seine? They've all secretly arranged for a boat to get them out independently. Some broker, some smuggler has basically just taken their money and said, "Yeah, I'll get you out of here." And they're all on the dock, and as they're waiting and they see the boat come on up, it gets sunk before it reaches them. So that way we don't start them in chains, imprisoned, but they know they will be soon, so they got to get out of there. Like, so what if they've all like paid a smuggler independently from each other to sneak them out? They all show up at the dock at the appointed time. They're all waiting there. They have a little exchange before anything happens. Who are you? I'm this person. I'm this person. I'm this person. There's our boat. Oh, here it comes. We're going to get out of here on that boat. And all of a sudden, kaboom or something. It blows up. It sinks. Something happens to it. And now they're stuck on the dock and they can hear the gendarme coming down the street, presumably looking for one or all of them. And now they have to go and hide down over the side of the dock. They can go into the sewers or something like that. Cannonballs fly. Death to smugglers. Scale the guards. Yeah, I like that. Thank you, guys. That gives me a great idea to start. Yeah, we'll start. Start on dock. Waiting for boat out of Paris. It is sunk before their eyes. Excellent. Yes, they will all. We'll have to have a little bit more background for our characters as to why they are on the list. Normally, what I have the players do is give me a dark secret, something they would not want the other players to know, that sometimes have worked themselves into games, sometimes have not, in my various chill games. For instance, Dr. Clément in the 1930s game, she was a recovering drug addict, and that worked its way into the story a couple times. So maybe this time their secret is everybody just has a secret of why they are on the list. So they can all have a reason why they're on the list. And if they choose to reveal that to the other players during the course of things, they do. If they don't, they don't. But I think it would be nice if it comes on out. Yeah, that can be in their backstory. That'll be a little extra assignment for them for their backstory. All right, so just to review, because I think we've got it. I think we've got a plan. So our players, it's the 7th of Thermidor in 1794, which is actually year 2. Because they changed the year. Yeah, it's year 2. Year 2. Because they reset the calendar year-wise as well. So it is, they're on the dock on the Seine in Paris on the 7th of Thermidor, year 2, or August 7th, 1794. Oh, I'm sorry, it would be 10 Thermidor. But actually August 7th. They are fleeing the terror. They've all ended up on a dock waiting for the boat out of Paris, which gets sunk before their eyes. And now they're stuck. They hear the gendarmes come in. They have to flee. They flee, and along the way, they start to encounter supernatural horrors, which will eventually be revealed to be the spirit of Robespierre, who has been fueled by hate. He's got a shattered jaw from his suicide attempt, and his Committee of Public Safety badge to help identify him. He is clearly instigating more evil and spiritual hatred in the area. So eventually they will discover that they need to find and dispose of his head where it was buried in the mass grave. And then that's the adventure. So when we think about a game, a story, I try to break it up into segments. So our first session will be them on the docks, watching their boat get blown up, getting our characters, watching the boat get blown up, them escaping the gendarme, and then they will encounter some undead horror, and a simple one like animated corpses attacking them, and maybe they're all wearing Committee of Safety badges, but they're crudely done, like crude. I'm going to write that down because I like that idea. the spirit has made them for his undead army, so they don't look quite right. They're almost childishly done, pinned to these rotting corpses that are attacking. So that's their first clue as to who it is. So, and that's session one. We'll end session one with that fight. Session two, depending on where they want to try to go next, as they're trying to escape whatever route they've chosen now to escape, we let them take that route, and along the way they encounter more of the undead, and maybe they even catch a glimpse of Robespierre, and maybe he even says, "You'll never escape." And then third session is them going, "Well, crap. We got to get rid of this guy. How do we get rid of him? Otherwise, we're never going to get out of here, because he just keeps showing up wherever we go." And so then the third and possibly fourth sessions are them exhuming Robespierre's body while under undead onslaught throughout, and eventually get rid of it. So there we go. Yeah, exactly, Sir David Purcell. That's roughly, yeah. So it's escape session. We get out. Oh no, there's undead. Hang on. Third session. Oh crap. No, really, there are undead. They are not going to let us leave. Something is controlling them. How do we stop it? And then 4, big finale. Bam. And we get rid of them. So that is going to be our adventure. And yes, Kara, please, everybody, do not tell our players. Most of the people that I speak to get players, I don't know who my players are going to be yet. I say, look, do not look at the old video, because we did this once before. Do not look at the video. Let it be a surprise. And they're all pretty good about it. They're all like, yeah, why would I spoil it for myself? I'm going to make sure that they haven't watched this video, and that so they don't know what's coming. And they're all pretty good about that. They want to be surprised. They want to have fun with it too. And I think we're going to be surprised too, because our players are going to give us surprises. No adventure survives contact with the players. Things are going to happen that we did not expect. They're going to do stuff that we had no idea and we're going to have to make it up on the fly as they go. And I'm going to have to, come up with alternatives as they start to do things. Please, I hope you will tune back in and next week when we start this off, and just be careful, monitor yourselves in the chat. We don't want to give anything away. The players are going to know that you guys helped create this. I'm going to tell them that. But just be careful of what you post. When Ryan was first lumberjack in that series of adventures. So I'm curious to see, first of all, who I'm going to get. I know Alex Stompoli expressed interest, and I think he's free on Wednesdays for the next bit. So I'm sure he will love the French Revolution. I'm going to tell them that's the theme, because obviously I get their characters. But let's not let's be careful about not spoiling too much for them. I'm going to see. I have a list of players from the past that I want to contact, and I'll see who I can get. I don't know. There is the off chance that Paulo Garbanzo himself might be on. He said he might have. I just spoke to him today, and he said he might have a conflict for one of the Wednesdays. Not next Wednesday, but the following Wednesday, he has a conflict. So we might see if I don't have enough players, otherwise I'll bring him in, and his character might go off on a little side quest on his own for that week, which we've done that here on this channel before as well. So if that's what we need to do, that's what we do. So we'll see about that. Dana Michike is very funny with guns. I don't think I'm going to have access to Dana this time around. The Pennsylvania Renaissance Fair is getting ready to open, and they are in rehearsals. Their combined rehearsals are on Wednesday nights. So I do not think I will be able to get Dana. Likewise, I do not think Graham will be coming back for the next one for the same reason, nor Matt Selly for the exact same reason. They are all working with the cast at the Pennsylvania Renaissance Fair, and their rehearsals are on Wednesday nights for their Blackfriar cast. But Alex is free. I'm going to see if Ryan Gelodi is free. Katie Hauser may or may not be free, depending on what her schedule is. Dan Kostelik, Shakespeare Proves, might be free. So we're going to check, and we're going to see, and we're going to find out who's available. And I will let you know. Guys, thank you so much for Victorian London Fog. He is only taking a break for this week. I just spoke to him. We just did the main show together, and he said that he would not be available this week, a la today, but next week he'd be willing to play. So he didn't have to run anything. He'd be willing to play. I got to check with Steve O'Dockerson as well, another perennial friend of mine. So we will see who we get. Again, thank you guys. Thank you so much for helping me write this. I hope you will tune back in, and we'll see where it goes. It's never going to go the way that we think it's going to go. It's going to go God knows where. I do want to mention a couple more things before I do go, though. Not even just our sponsors. I'm trying something new as far as the storytelling. I sort of started including it in the last one. There is a gentleman out there who has a website, podcast. He's got a couple books out now. He's not an official sponsor. He's not a friend of mine. I think I friended him on Facebook a while ago. I don't know if I still am on there or not. His name is Guy Sklanders. He has his stream. I just stumbled upon him on YouTube, and his. I'm going to type in his website. I'll make sure I spell it right. There it is. GreatGameMaster.com. I think I got that right. He does how to be a great GM. And he started a number of years. Yeah, Guy Sklanders. Exactly, Sir David Percival. He started a while ago. And I've been watching his videos occasionally. And he's got some really great things on storytelling, how to put together an adventure. But he doesn't do just great game masters. He also does how to be a great player. You know, things you want to keep in mind while you're playing the games. And he's not system specific. It's just in general. He was I believe he was a script writer for a while too, which is where he gets a lot of his storytelling background from. But I happened to stumble across not terribly long ago. He did one on running a horror game. And one of the things that really stuck out to me was he was talking about what makes something truly horror and not just a jump scare. And one of the things he mentioned was mentioning all the senses. We often discuss, we might mention sickening crunches or horrible slurping sounds. We might mention that, a green viscous fluid running down the walls kind of thing as a descriptor. We often forget texture. What does something feel like? And we often forget to describe smell, which I started to put in the last one a little bit. And I want to start to do some more in our next adventure, describing smells. Smell is one of our most strong sense memories. If I say sweaty gym socks, many of you just now got a whiff of sweaty gym socks, even though you might not be anywhere near sweaty gym socks. But you know what that smell is. You remember that smell. Or like the chlorine of a public pool. You all know what that smells like if you've ever been to one. So using smell to describe and create more horror in that way. So I'm trying to engage some more of the senses in my descriptions. We'll see if I remember to do that. I was starting to introduce it in our last one. I want to keep doing that. Another big thing for me for horror is the sort of like I don't want to say needless sacrifice. Tragic sacrifice is a good one, or tragic decisions that have to be made. The very first game I ever ran on here was with the Irish one. Some of you were around for that, but there was an evil entity running around in Ireland, and they had to ring this bell to stop it. And the leprechauns, who they had semi-befriended, showed up and asked them not to, because the bell would not only get rid of the evil entity, but also them. But they were being attacked, and what do you do? So like those impossible choices, I also like to put in. So I'll figure out how I can add some of that. There are plenty of opportunities, I think, to add that in here into this adventure we just wrote. So look for that coming up. Different sensory descriptions, really tough moral choices that our characters might have to make. I'm going to be trying to throw that into there as well. Oh, yes, the coat pocket coins. Yes. With old Tommy. The tragedy at the end, the sadness at the end of that adventure was great. I've run that adventure 5 different times now with different groups and different settings. And I always get a little tug at the heartstrings on that one for the end when they go back to the Airbnb and the old woman knows she's never going to get to dance with the leprechaun who promised her a dance because he's gone. That kind of thing. Or old Tommy has died, including his dog, because they were being kept alive artificially by the leprechauns. If you've not seen it, go on back through our archives, check it out, go all the way back, and the very first Gothic horror game session that I ran was a great little story set in Ireland, involving Crom, St. Patrick, leprechauns, some ancient Roman coins, all kinds of stuff. Really good one. I really enjoyed it. It does make you sad. It does make you sad. And I think some horror has some good sadness in it. And I think that's important. But I've been talking a lot. We've got a great adventure ready to go. So come on back next week. And guys, thank you so much for these past several years of always coming back and doing this. I want to give a special shout out to Sir David Percival, who has often helped us out by running the Twitch points and the mod stuff in the side, running the poll and everything. He's been here almost from the very beginning. And Sally been here the whole time. Kara, Victorian London Fog, Rhubarb, Morcall. So many of you just keep coming back and back again and again. And we really appreciate it. It makes it a lot of fun for us to see how you guys react to the new stuff we try. And we're trying to keep it fun and engaging and different constantly. It's just a good game. It's just fun. We're just having a great time. Even though the horrible things are happening in the game, it's fun. It's a fun little escapism. I do also want to remind everybody that we do have a Patreon for Nat 21 Adventures, and also a Ko-fi. I'm never sure how to pronounce it. KO-FI, that you can drop a little donation in there if you feel like helping to keep the channel running. But the other thing that keeps the channel running, hey, is our sponsors. How much, in fact, does the segue? Oh, yeah, here's our Patreon. There we go. But as far as our sponsors, 3D2U, our good friends, Jesse and Amy over there making all sorts of stuff, 3D2U.org. Check them out. Also, we do have our perennial sponsors, Ren Adventures, who are doing Destination D&D now. And we certainly have our lovely Destination New Orleans coming up November 19th through the 23rd. Go to renadventures.com, or you can go to relatively new DestinationDND.com. We're planning another trip to England next year, so cruise on over to DestinationDND.com and keep an eye on that. And of course, my wife has a book collection of short fiction and poetry called Dare, horror, dark fantasy by Melissa Lee. It's available in Kindle or paperback, also on Audible, where I do the narration. And we have a Patreon as well. It is Quill and Quote. There we go. You actually have to type it in that way because it is considered for over 18 and over only. So you can't just search Quill and Quote. If you join us on our Patreon, we send you stories, the written versions, the audiobook versions that I'm doing occasionally. We send them to you. That's where our book Dare came from, was a compilation of them. We're working on a new one. I'm excited. Melissa has a new one, a bunch of new stories that she's put together. We're sending them to an editor. Right now, we've sent out 5 of the stories we want to include on our new book. And we actually have an illustrator that we are working on who's going to do an illustration for each story. Some of you who are familiar with New Jersey will know this person. I'm not going to say who they are yet because I'm not sure I'm allowed to say. But we do have an artist who is doing basically like a frontispiece for each single story. And Melissa has sent them 4 of the stories so far so they can start working up ideas. I'm going to go through and either record or remaster some of the recordings, and we should hopefully have the book out by Halloween is our goal. So please do check us out there. We'll see if we can get that together for you all. That would be lovely. Beyond that, everybody, thank you so much again for coming. If you want some more improvised fiction, tomorrow at noon Eastern, on Twitch, on here, on this channel, Melissa will be doing Flash Phantasmagoria. Basically, she uses your prompts and she'll write a quick piece of flash fiction, encouraging you all to write along too, using prompts to create a really brief, short story. So if you got the time, tomorrow at noon on your lunch break, you want to check out, do some creative writing with Hamler Z, Melissa Lee. Check it out right here. So until next Wednesday, and I will be posting who my players are as soon as I know who they are. I'm going to start reaching out to all of them now. But until next Wednesday, did that person do art for Dice Knight's Adventures? I think they did some of it. I'm not sure. I would have to check. I can't really say anything more because I don't want to. I don't know where Sir David Percival, where that stands, but we'll see. But guys, thank you so much for joining us here today. Have a lovely evening, and we'll see you next Wednesday. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.